the continuation for second reading of the resolution on the Declaration of Policies and the Bill of Rights.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion is approved. All right, we will now proceed to the deliberation of resolution number 13, 11 rather, the Declaration of Policies and Bill of Rights. Are there any speakers who wish to speak may now stand at the appropriate podium.
Mr. President, I was the principal person to suggest amendments, therefore I shall explain to this august body, to my conscript fathers, what its contents are.
You're recognized.
So, in a letter that was dated, I believe, today, that was sent to Commissioner Parliamentarian and to Commissioner Arcilia Inigo, which I have now linked to the Constitutional Commission channel, there is a change in the wording of many of the provisions. Of course, the provisions for the most part are still the same. The provisions are still preserved in their former form. It's just that, number one, the wording was changed so that it can accommodate our legal system better. Number two, we expounded further on the rights of the accused so as to be more precise. And number three, we changed that right on political parties. And number four, we added two additional rights of the accused, more faithful to the 1987 one. For Section 1, it's still the same, but for Section 2, it specified a right against unreasonable searches and seizures being inviolable, and about search warrants, etc., etc., etc. This is vital, of course. Section 3 was added the right to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Section 4 divided the freedom of religion to two: the non-establishment clause, namely the state cannot have an official religion, and the free exercise clause, that the state shall permit the free exercise of all religions. Section 5 is unchanged for the most part. Section 6 was changed from political parties to unions, associations, societies. Section 8 was Miranda rights were fully listed. Of course, some parts were removed from the original, just so that we can be shorter. Section 2, it's still sort of the same. Section 9, due process, and then full listing of the rights of the accused. Section 10, writ of habeas corpus and the new life rule is put into one provision. Section 11, speedy disposition is added. Section 12, not self-incrimination right is added. Section 13, cruel and unusual punishments added. Section 14, still the same. Section 15, still the same. It has been forwarded to them, and lo and behold, those are the amendments. So I would like to ask my fellow commissioners, the Commissioner Arcilia Inigo and the Commissioner Parliamentarian, if they have any further reactions to these proposed amendments, or if these amendments are already fine by them.
Anyone who wishes to respond to Commissioner Gadolagos? Yes, Commissioner Parliamentarian, you are recognized. Thank you. Commissioner RC, do you have anything that you wish to say? Are you in favor of these amendments?
I do not contest any of these amendments. Thank you very much.
All right, with that in mind, then these amendments are to be approved and are to be edited accordingly. Have they already been reflected in the actual resolution, Commissioner RC, Commissioner Godolgos?
I believe Commissioner Parliamentarian can answer to that, Mr. President.
Yes, Commissioner Parliamentarian, you may speak. All right. With that in mind, are there any other points that should be raised by any of the commissioners on this resolution?
None.
Thank you. With that in mind, Mr. Floor Leader, perhaps we could motion that to close the period of debate and move to voting rather. Yes, move to voting.
Mr. President, I hereby move jointly that we close discussion on this resolution and that we now proceed to voting on passing it on second reading.
That is in order. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We will now proceed to the votation of resolution number 11, A resolution to include the provisions and the entirety of the drafted article on the Declaration of Principles of State Policies and Bill of Rights. All right, let me just open the voting. Bam. Delegates, you may now vote. Okay, with 6 votes in favor, no abstentions, and none opposed, this resolution passes on second reading. Applause is in order. Clap, clap.
Huzzah! Clap, clap. Here, here.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Commissioner. Yes, floor leader, you're recognized.
I move that we begin the reconsideration of resolution number 3, namely the executive department on the late amendment that has been proposed to a particular section.
That is in order. We will now. Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, we will now proceed to the consideration of the late amendment to resolution number 3, the executive department. Could the principal author of the amendment please present themselves?
Mr. President, I believe that the primary person who suggested a reconsideration of section, let me just double check, Mr. President, section 11, paragraph 3, no person shall be appointed as heads of the executive department, ambassadors, etc., blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I believe the primary proponent of changing it is Commissioner Iris.
All right, Commissioner Iris, you may stand to be recognized and you may present your amendments. Oh no, it's all right. Please take your time, Commissioner. So since our force will be established its own penal code, my main suggestion is to rid of the armed forces appointment rule on the resolution. That is all. Thank you, Commissioner Iris. Are there any commissioners who wish to speak? Yes, Commissioner Godolagos, you're recognized.
Mr. President, to represent the interests of one of the members who is absent, who is the primary sponsor of this bill, Commissioner George M. Harrison, I believe that he is very much willing to accommodate the amendment that has been proposed, and I believe that he's very much willing to accommodate the complete removal of the third paragraph in section 11. Since the addition of additional qualifications for members of the cabinet and such other persons can be placed instead in legislation that can more easily be changed, such as the administrative code. The Administrative Code of 1987, for instance, in real life, states what the qualifications of cabinet officials have to be, etc. So I am not opposed to this, and I am open to having it removed unless any of my other fellow commissioners have anything else to say concerning it.
Thank you, Commissioner Godolagos. Are there any other commissioners? Anyone? Okay. With that in mind, if there are no objections to the amendment, then I believe Commissioner Godolagos, who's here representing President Harrison, I believe then we are allowed now to strike out that paragraph entirely to accommodate the amendment. Am I correct, for leader?
Yes, Mr. President.
Then let it be done.
It has been done, Mr. President.
Thank you. With that in mind, I would smile upon a motion to proceed to voting on this resolution, or no, no, rather, to proceed to the votation of resolutions in third reading.
Mr. President, before we move to the voting on third reading, the other two items on the agenda, namely the
Oh,
provisions on administration and the provisions on impeachment, require reconsideration of previous articles that have been passed. So I believe it would be more wise to pass articles on third reading after we have considered these.
yes, my apologies. We will now proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion on the admins. Yes. Are there any speakers who wish to speak?
Mr. President, I'm afraid I have to occupy the floor again.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, there has, in the last session that we have had, I believe my fellow commissioners can attest to the fact that there was much discussion. It was not bitter discussion, but it was very much a point of contention concerning what we should include in the Constitution concerning the administration. And such contention is a reflection of how pivotal and how important the relation between the government and the administration is, especially considering various mechanisms. For instance, I believe it is the sentiment of this commission that we should not permit Congress to have mandatory power over the administration. Namely, Congress cannot pass a law that would bind the administration to do their will. However, this House is more amicable to sort of representational or liaison forms of communication. Namely, perhaps cabinet secretaries could once in a while contact the administration. Hey, the people want this. Is it possible to have this? And then the administration could oblige if they believe it necessary, etc. I believe that is the sentiment of the House. That there should not be an extreme mandatory manner in which the administrators or the developers can easily infringe upon the government, nor can the government infringe upon the administrators. Am I correct in reading the temperature of this floor?
I believe so, Mr. Floor Leader.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Therefore, my my suggestion concerning our articles on administration and development is that instead of particularly describing some form of mechanism through which the administration and government can contact one another, it will simply include provisions that will act more as a guideline, more like a state principle, or like a directive to Congress, in order that however the administration. If I could just open the document. Okay. There is actually something that I could add, but I would like to defer to the private communication that you, Mr. President, just sent to the Constitutional Commission chat. I also have the same question.
Yes,
Are
perhaps
we,
Commissioner
are we in
Tarsus
the
should answer.
affirmative? Are we in the affirmative or in the negative on this? Commissioner Tarsus?
Moment, sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question is contained within the Constitutional Convention.
Okay. Let me see.
I believe it begins with wait and then followed by a statement that I cannot read aloud.
Yes.
touch some grass.
Touch some grass. Anyways, while that matter is being discussed, let's continue with our deliberations. Yes.
All right. I shall send the proposed sections to the Discord channel now, if my fellow commissioners could read it. I forgot to add a sentence, but I will just say the nature of the sentence that I forgot to add once I actually read it. Quote, States shall, alongside the group administration and development, recognize and maintain the distinction between matters of group administration and those of government. They shall make strides towards maintaining a dynamic relationship to mutually ensure national development. So immediately you see from Section 1 that this sounds like it belongs to Article 2. Article 2 being state policies and principles. Section 2, this could belong to the legislative department. The Congress shall, as soon as is possible, provide for a system of liaison and representation of the interests of the group administration and development in the legislative and policy-making process. Namely, it would not necessarily be that administrators have a congressman in the House, or it would not necessarily be that they would just have to talk it out. If the government and the administration come to an agreement as to how to interact with each other, which is not in a very formal way, which is why this is phrased as liaison and representation instead of representation. It's liaison. Namely, we could literally have a channel in which the administrators can be spoken to, and that could count as quote-unquote liaison. Or you could appoint someone who would act as the liaison. Whatsoever the Congress, the government, and the administration decides. So the sentence that could better be added here is the sentence that could be added here, and I note this memorandum that has been sent to us dated 10:08 p.m.
Yes, I've seen it as well. Hi. Okay. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Well, gentlemen, so the additional sentence that we could add is something along the lines of that extraordinary circumstances within the government, such as extreme failure, can no. There shall be a policy mostly of general non-interference. Not non-interference as in we do absolutely nothing with each other, but non-interference generally as in members of administration for the most part, generally should be discouraged from government service, that kind of thing. But I would not think it favorable to set it in stone that they absolutely cannot join, because that would make it difficult to implement. So, do my fellow commissioners have any reactions to the two sections that I have just said?
Yes, commissioners, your tongues are now as you will, if you'll pardon the pun.
The cat no longer got your tongue.
But yes.
I mean, for instance, with this representation and liaison, heavens, you could have a admin party list. I mean, well, whatever.
Technically speaking.
Technically, but not necessarily. It could be as grandiose as that, or it could be as simple as, like I said earlier, I don't know, a Discord channel, or the president could establish the NGAR, the National Task Force on Government Administration Relationships. Wow.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Wow, I just made a task force. But seriously, we could just make that. And then all the cabinet secretaries would be there. And the DOJ secretary could go, we need a court in such so-and-so. People think that a bridge would be nice in such and such, blah, blah, blah. But I would, of course, be opposed to any ideas such as if Congress passes a law, the administration has to bow down. Which is why I'm also hesitant to explain too much what administration can do within these provisions. Because it's like writing down in a piece of paper, God cannot be killed, you must submit.
Yes.
He's on.
Yes,
What did he say?
Commissioner Zozo, you may speak. You are recognized.
Unless he is watching another
Yes.
one of
Oh, no.
those
I'm not watching because unfortunately my phone is
are we
charged.
invaders in the
Anyways,
Second World War?
sorry, I should stand on the podium. I said that other than creating a server or a task force, maybe we could use AGC instead. I believe that is all what I've said. That is all.
Wow.
You didn't say anything. Actually, you didn't say anything.
What? I heard him.
What? What? Is he muted?
Yeah. No, he was. I could hear him clearly.
What did he say?
He said that we could instead also just propose just to make a GC, other than, let's say, like a task force or whatever it may be.
A GC could be in order. That's what I said. Like it could be formal, semi-formal, or not formal at all. That is why it's phrased as the Congress shall, as soon as possible, provide for a system of liaison and representation of the interests of blah 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 blah. So instead of making it like uh, mandatory that it would have to be this way, it could just be any way. As long as there is a way in which communication is constant. That is what is necessary. Yeah, I need to
Yes.
rejoin PC as well. Please readmit me. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other peoples who wish to speak? I would highly recommend that Commission matter. I do recall we had a very, very fruitful and heated discussion the other night, literally about this. So let's bring back that fire, that passion that you commissioners have on the subject matter at hand. Yes. Anyone?
Mayhaps the silence in the present. Oh, Commissioner Tarsus, I was just talking about the provisions that I gave earlier.
Yes. Perhaps you
Would
could
you
repeat it for me.
well, I will repeat it in brief. Essentially, all this provision says is that there will be a way in which the interests of the administration and the interests of the government will be represented to each other in a non-specific way. It simply is phrased as a system of liaison and representation. So it could be as formal as a task force, or it could be as informal as a group chat. I mean, we could
Yes.
call it a task force, but it would operate informally. That kind of thing. How would he feel about that? How would my honorable friend feel about that?
Yes. Commissioner Tarsus is now taking some time in the spirit of Ignatian spirituality.
Ignatian spirit. Why is everyone is Commissioner EXO? Can you try to speak again?
Hello, Mr.
Oh,
Sorry,
I can hear him
Mr.
now.
Commissioner.
Oh dear.
Okay, so Commissioner Tarsus, since and the other provision would simply say that there is a recognition of boundaries, that there is a general principle of non-interference, that there is to be a dynamic relationship between the administration, blah blah blah. That's virtually it.
Yes.
Yes, I yelled.
Yelled. Sumigaw ka nga.
Okay, I yelled. Hold on. I yelled
Yes.
the floor.
Thank you for
Commissioner
yielding.
Tarsus, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition and thank you for yielding. Um, uh, Personally, I think as much as possible with regards to the communication and the relationship between administration and government, or rather the people and administration. The way in which this relationship should be facilitated, I believe, as much as possible, it should be informal. However, with regards to the provisions, um, if I may use my good friend, the Commissioner Godoligus' words, that it could be as formal as a task force. Um, uh, Is it within our power to give a concrete example of how this relationship could be facilitated, if I may inquire?
Uh,
To
what
whom
was the
are
question?
you?
What
Um,
was the question? Is it in
Sorry,
our power?
is it in our power to give the concrete system or steps or avenue in which this relationship or dialogue could be done?
Power. Uh, I would argue that we only have half the power because communication is only as good as the two people who are communicating or two parties that are communicating.
No, no, no. I
Ergo,
mean, I mean, can we explicitly define the way in which this communication can be done?
in what lines?
Uh,
In
uh,
lieu
uh,
of what wording?
as in, do you have the power to say uh, this will be done through a specific committee, or this will be done by way of a specific channel? Do we have the power to establish these things?
We we can say things like that, but yeah, perhaps that's possible.
Uh,
It's possible, but it is not necessarily advisable.
Understood. Um, if you'd give me another moment to think, right now I believe that while it is advisable that we keep the relationship informal, I think it would be best to form a concrete avenue once we arrive at the point where communication between the members of the group, aka the citizenry, and the administration is active.
So, so what you are saying is, in the wise words of the singer Barry Manilow, we will look at it somewhere down the road.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Uh, that's very probable. That's why this is phrased as, quote, the Congress shall as soon as possible provide for a manner of liaison, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, once the time comes that it is necessary that there should be an interaction, there can be formalized in some form of way through statute, but not through this Constitution. Statute as in a law that is ordinarily passed by Congress, or as in an executive order passed by the President, something along those lines. Something passed so that we can formalize a channel. Maybe, perhaps, if the people of that time decide so, but 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 that leaves it somewhere down the road. Somewhere
Okay.
down the road.
If I may respond to this and provide my own comments,
Please
uh,
go ahead.
I think instead of this being a matter of statute or law, would it not be preferable instead? And I am asking to this my fellow commissioners, if the administrators instead, with their authority and their powers, create instead a dedicated channel beyond the scope of government and law, in which the people can communicate with the administrators specifically for these matters.
Uh,
The floor
that
is
could be
open to
very
any
probably.
interpretation.
Yes, I am willing to yield the floor to anyone who rises, but as of the moment, in reply to that, uh, of course, it would be advisable because, like I said earlier, communication is only as good insofar as the two parties that are in it. So if the government passes a thing that says we will talk to administration in such and such a form, and then the administration says we don't want to, then there's no point. I mean, if if that is not the preferable way for the administration, then we can do absolutely nothing about it. So, I mean, it could be phrased to say that there will be found a way. I don't know, jointly, perhaps that could be the phrasing, jointly. But for clarification, do you by saying that this is out of the government, are you saying you want the government to have absolutely nothing to do about this? Or are you simply saying that this is not necessarily a formal process within government?
Sorry. I would say that it's not a formal process within government. Because in this matter, I think our general consensus was uh, the government should have a say in these matters as the voice of the people. Ergo, if we simply allow it so that the people can directly voice their concerns to the administration, we wouldn't necessarily need the government itself to stand as the voice of the people. Um, as such, I wonder why we necessarily need a law or statute for this process.
I mean, it is, it could, yes, I suppose, because of the mention of Congress, then that presupposes a law has to be passed. But then we could rephrase it. It could instead say, the state shall, as soon as possible, provide for a system of blah, 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 so that statute will not be necessarily per se. Because the intention was not for statutes necessarily. The intention was just some form of communication agreed upon. This provision would serve as, the guideline. Hey, government, once you do start, you need to find a way to properly be able to cooperate with the government. So if it is rephrased to the state shall, as soon as possible, blah 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 blah, that would say that passing it by statute is not necessary. Ergo, it can be passed in whatever shape or form as long as it is done cooperatively. Would that be more amenable?
Yes, I think for me that would be more amenable. I'm open for the other commissioners to discuss their own thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, please. Other commissioners, please, please, you're highly encouraged to speak on this very important. But right now, I would just like to ask a point of inquiry to the floor leader, just on a more technical note. With that, are we still envisioning that these two sections rather that you've written, will they still be part of a dedicated section resolution on admins, or do you want to integrate it into other?
Friends, the commissioners, would not have anything else to add concerning this, that it would probably be two sections anyway. So, and as best as possible, I want the mention of administration and development to be as minimal as possible in its mention in this constitution, and that its mentions would simply be simple bases, just simple foundation. So possible that we can just incorporate it. So there would be a resolution, but the resolution would simply say to incorporate this into resolution number blah blah, that blah 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 blah. So
All right.
yes,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
so do my fellow commissioners.
Is
Anything else to say?
anyone? Commissioner RC, Commissioner Parliamentarian, Commissioner Zozo, are you alive?
None, says Commissioner Parliamentarian.
All right. All right. To continue the discussion, I wanted to inquire. I wanted to inquire to the admins present in this session, because I do remember that yesterday that there was a meeting that took place, to my understanding, regarding certain things with the admins, and we politely asked that we be appraised of the situation so that we can be guided in the writing. This particular section, could be given any information about it, any updates? Yes, Commissioner, the commissioners.
I will be in this case representing the the administration. Basically, with regards to the matters that were discussed, um, it was related to the matter of judging cases which transcended the role play. Ergo, things that were breaching Discord term of service, Roblox rules, etc., etc. Uh, we are pondering, I suppose you could say, on the possibility of the system um, being so that if such a thing were to occur, uh, we would have a board of judges comprised of one from the administration, one from the government, and one from the community itself. Now, the third one we haven't discussed in depth yet what kind of qualifications and requirements the third judge would have. But so far, that is what was largely discussed.
All right. Thank you. Do any commissioners wish or yes, Commissioner Gadol?
I have an inquiry for Commissioner Tarsus in this communication from the administration. So this idea of adding a panel of judges, which would include particular representatives of administration, blah 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 blah, was this envisioned to actually be implemented, or was this envisioned as a sort of compromise between the idea of particular members of this commission and accommodating it?
Sorry. Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear a lot of it.
I shall. Okay, I shall shorten it. Would the administrators still prefer that when there are administrative issues like Discord problems, that they will summarily dispose of it? I.e.,
Um.
someone does a badly bad, immediately one of the administrator does the ban.
Okay.
Yes.
So regarding that, what the admins have thought about was we would implement a soft ban, aka while the investigation was going on, both related parties would have their access to the server and the community revoked temporarily, and the judging, or rather, the case should be reviewed by a board of judges comprised once more by one from the admins, one from the government, and one from the community. And if my good friend Commissioner Zozo could help me with this, I believe that the ultimate judgment would then be on the admins themselves.
Are you satisfied, Commissioner Gadol?
Commissioner Zozo is, might be saying something.
Wait, are you talking, EXO?
Oh, I was supposed to
Oh,
ask permission to speak, Mr.
oh, okay.
President.
All right. Before that, so wait, Commissioner Freud, are you satisfied with? Do you
Uh,
wish to wait
well,
for the
well,
inquiry
in
of Commissioner Zozo?
yes, I would like to wait to wish. I'd like to. I wish to wait for the
Yeah.
commissioner's question.
All right. Before I proceed to Commissioner Zozo, a point of clarification to the commissioners. No. This board of judges, what exactly is their role if final judgment is still in the hands of the admin?
I'm sorry, wait. I believe that they would judge, but if say the judge was locked or tied, then the admins would be able to step in and intervene.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, I want to clarify. And one last interpolation from me before I proceed to commissioners. I do think that even then we should still be stringent with from the admins, from the government, whatever, will be selected to judge. Like Kalimbawa, it should be best if they were, let's say, a certain age or something like that. I don't know what. Kayo bahala. But I
Kayo
just want to put it
bahala.
out there. We should also be strict choosing with choosing who and what are their qualifications. Anyways, Commissioner Zozo, you are recognized, my young man.
To add to my right honorable friend's statement earlier, the commissioners, this system, if I may, this system is based on the United Nations says International Court of Justice, the Roblox one, not the real life one. I believe it has a administrative body and a judiciary body, of which a case goes through both of them. If I recall correctly, there is another uh, what do you call this, inspiration, so to say, or uh, yes, inspiration, so to say, which comes from Polar Star. They have their own judiciary, so to say. They have a different server. So to explain how the process works in Polar Star, as I am more familiar to it, basically you file a ticket, state what happened, and if possible, show evidences that you have, and this goes up and up. And sorry, my mother's talking in the background. Back
That's
to the
okay.
topic.
Your time.
Uh, so it essentially goes up. I believe if the cases aren't that severe, I believe lower or junior members would handle it. But say if it's something severe, I believe it goes up through the upper echelons for the decision to be made. So I believe, if I'm correct, this system should be the same one as we're going to uh, apply to our group. Uh, of course, again, the soft ban, final decision, etc., etc. I believe uh, my fellow commissioner has explained it well enough. So I believe that is all for now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Other commissioners wish to speak? Anyone?
Mr. President, so I believe that this is for the oh he just said no.
Oh,
So I believe that this system is for cases of violation of the rules of the community as a whole and of the Discord, right?
the commissioner or Commissioner Zozo, if you could clarify.
Yes,
If it
indeed.
handles, it, sorry, did not hear you.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
who
go
was
on, go on.
recognized?
You can say it na lang,
Uh,
Commissioner Zozo.
I believe it applies to all cases from Roblox terms of service violations, Discord community service violations to, well, community violations, so on and so forth. So I believe everything, all violations are going to be applied to this to this system. It handles everything, all violations rather. That that is all.
Thank you.
so, oh yes, Commissioner Tarsus, do you have anything else to expand on that?
Yes. Basically, this is born from our general consensus that, with regards to issues that transcend the role play, uh, in which the primarily basis of judgment and justice should are real life statutes or rules and terms. However, that being said, we came to the conclusion that it was still in the interest of the community, for the interest of the community, that we exercise a form of justice that is transparent, visible, and public. Uh, as such, we decided to create this body. So, as my fellow commissioner Zozo has said, we'd implement that ticket system, but the judging of the ticket system would be done by those judges in the panel established.
All right.
Uh, what what is this polar star? What is this polar star thing? If I could be enlightened, is it an RO nation?
Mr. President, if my may,
Yes, Commissioner Zozo, you are recognized.
Polar Star is a major military community. It is not a row nation, but a row nation does use their technology. So it being a community, of course, it has multiple row nations, multiple other communities inside of it. Most of the cases they handle are blacklist from their community, which inhibits those blacklisted communities to use their technologies. Second will be doxing. Third will be copyright or leak cases. Uh, I believe those are the most common cases. No, that is all.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Godoligos, has your question been answered?
I'd just like to ask a little bit of an additional question to Commissioner Tarsus, who has. Uh,
No, wait. I'm addressing a concern from the crowd.
Please go ahead. Anyways,
Who
but
is he going to
yes,
kill? What? Anyways,
me.
no, Commissioner Tarsus. What was the question? Oh,
What?
I am. This is actually an interesting proposal for instances in which there are community violations, but I I am of the persuasion that it would not necessarily have to be included in this constitution, since it is something that is completely out of it. Not out of it. Excuse me. That makes it sound crazy. Completely out of its necessary bounds. But yes, this could be a. So my understanding is that the consensus of the in the administration admin and mod meeting was that this that they're favorable to this kind of system. Yes,
Yes.
for the most part. And I see. But we don't. I think my fellow commissioners can agree that we don't necessarily have to include in the Constitution that you know cases involving
Of
group
course.
administration, blah blah.
Yeah, I
That's
would agree to that as well.
okay, lovely. But
All right.
yes, that would be certainly an interesting system to implement, and I think we can incorporate it. Yes, yes, it's very feasible, very feasible.
Yes.
I
Oh,
look forward. I look forward to its career. I very much look forward.
we shall watch it with great interest.
We shall watch it with a great interest. Is that correct, Commissioner Tarsus?
Indeed, we shall.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Um. Yes, Commissioner, the commissioners. I would just like to ask another point of clarification. Panel. Yes. Would they
Sorry,
be appointed?
you got cut off there.
Hello. Hello.
Could you repeat what you said?
Yes, Commissioner, the commissioners. Um, I wanted to clarify about this panel of judges.
Yes, go on.
Will they be appointed, like the judges themselves? Are they appointed a
Oh, no,
permanent
no, 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 no. It
members?
will not be a permanent body. It will be created on a case-to-case basis.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask that. That's it. Thank you.
So it's
Um,
like a court.
could I be recognized in a bit? One of our people in the stands has a concern with regarding the definition of polar star, and for the sake of our own understanding, I would like to clarify on his behalf.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so according to this individual, Polar Star is a startup created because of problems encountered with technology leaking, specifically a free modeled heli system. Um, they do background checks regarding moderations, and they use bots for identification. While this individual does point out that the judiciary system of Polar Star was shut down, uh, oh, okay. We can proceed as this individual is still sending me the details of their system.
All right, Commissioner RC or
Hello, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
yes, or audible.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Regarding the system which is supposed to compose one member of the administration, one member of the community, and one member of the government. Those are for investigatory purposes. When it comes to community violations, tama po ba?
Commissioner Tarsos, we could answer that.
Apologies if the good Commissioner RC could repeat. I could not hear you very well.
Um, Regarding the committee that is to be made on a case by case basis a when it comes to people breaking community rules and guidelines nga po, no, would it be for investigatory purposes po, or would it be for parang isang hatulan na doon pagkatapos ng investigation?
Yeah, so investigation and then judgment. And if the judgment is blocked or tied, then the administration team can intervene.
Mm. Um, so to comment lang po siguro regarding the members of the said ano no committee. if one person each, it would be favorable po if instead of just a member of the government, if it is to be implemented, it'd be a member of the Supreme Court instead, no? A member of the judiciary, since they are the judiciary is supposed to be known for its impartiality regarding judicial matters when it comes to role play. So I believe that judicial appointee or sabi natin, the justices would be more would be better when it comes to representing the government in cases such as that.
Commissioner Tarsus, if you would want to.
Apologies, this is the second time. This is not a matter of you being soft. I was distracted by something. Could you repeat, but summarize? Sorry.
Most certainly, most certainly. I was pointing to the idea that it would be best if the said member for the government in the case by case committee, which is to be established, no, or which would be established by the administration, uh, it would be best if that member for the government is from the judiciary instead of sabihin natin from the legislature or from the executive.
Ah, yes. Okay.
As the judiciary members, specifically the justices of the Supreme Court, would be the best people when it comes to discussing cases such as those, as they are known or they are supposed to be known at the very least uh, to have high impartiality.
Okay. If I may respond now, Mr. President. Um,
Yes,
Mr.
go ahead.
President?
Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I did forward this specific point exactly during the meeting that the judge should be from the judiciary because of their experience and skills, etc., etc. The reason why we didn't put it in stone yet is because we wanted to see how the government, aka Congress, so and so, would think about the system and then what they would propose or they would propose to be the government judge on the panel. But seeing as it seems, at least from this conversation, that the idea or the favorable idea is that a member of the judiciary should represent, the administration team is more than willing to make it so.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. That would be all for my inquiry.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Frood, you are now recognized.
Actually, the interesting thing is that this would sort of, just sort of, not exactly, but this would sort of function like a court martial. For instance, a court martial is usually summoned only when there is a convening authority. Usually, a general court martial has to have one member who is a member of the bar, etc., etc., etc. So, would it be comparable to that insofar as it is an ad hoc body? It is formed solely for the purpose of particular offenses that the administration thinks has to be looked into in a very in-depth way, apart from usual administrative processes. Is am I correct in this description? Unless he is again distracted.
Oh, sorry, I
Commissioner.
thought you were asking someone else. Um, yes, you'd be correct in said description.
Uh, okay. So we have one commissioner who is playing a strange game, one commissioner who is watching our oppressors in the Second World War.
Oh
Anyways,
dear me.
okay. So good, my good friends, brothers in Christ. I don't know what to call you anymore. Uh, I think this could be amenable. We could, if by the grace of God, uh, well, I mentioned God 3 times in 1 minute. We could, within the Supreme Court, create a mechanism insofar as the Chief Justice himself, or something along those lines, can suggest one of the justices in there to the administration to say, this guy amongst us is, yes, Amogus. This guy amongst us is competent. He can think outside the box, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's possible. But though this idea is very flashy, I think generally all we're saying is that we like it. So, is there anything else that we can add, remove, or modify to anything we've said, or is that the general sentiment of this body? We like the idea, maybe the government representative should be from the judiciary. Is there anything else?
Are there any objections? Seeing none, then I guess that is our opinion. Anyways, we have digressed. We have digressed a bit too far from our actual agenda. Yes.
Yes.
So let us anchor ourselves. Let us return forthwith, henceforth.
That my fellow commissioners here are amenable to provisions that simply say, number one, in live record, call this potential synonymous to a very controversial. Very curious indeed. We shall watch your career with great interest. Now, at any rate, so I believe my fellow commissioners are amenable to two provisions that would say, number one, administration, developers, and government will recognize boundaries, general non-interference, and number two, that there should be some form of system that will be established by the state, not necessarily by the Congress, for liaison, representation of interests, etc. Is that right? Is that
Are there
right?
any objections?
Correct. C-O-R-I-Q-U-E. Correct.
It looks like there are no objections. Therefore, it shall be so.
It shall be so. We are most amused. Thank you. I shall... Actually, Mr. President.
Yes.
After we finish the agenda, I think we should have a recess wherein I will briefly make the resolution so that we can pass it already for second reading. And I recognize the presence of the Commissioner George.
President. Awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Wow.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for
Mr.
that.
President, but I believe that we should, since we are all in agreement, in amazing, fantastic agreement, I believe that we should, I move that we close discussion on provisions on administration and that it will be reopened again for second reading later after recess.
Yes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion is hereby approved.
Huzzah.
All right.
Mr.
Huzzah.
President, I move that we begin consideration of the next point in the agenda, namely the process of impeachment.
Thank you. Before that, we recognize the presence of President George M. Harrison. Applause is in
Yes,
order.
we don't care about the other president. I'm
Oh,
just
is he
kidding.
Thank you.
Yes,
we
you,
also
fellow commissioners.
recognize the presence of the other president.
The other president,
Okay.
the prezi, the pres. Anyways, Mr. President, I move that we begin.
Which Mr. President?
I move that we begin consideration of the resolution concerning. I'm Conyo. The acting president right now is more Conyo than I am. Anyways,
That's like
Mr.
so
President,
totoo.
like so totoo. Let's go to Scarps. Okay.
I love
I move that we
Scarps.
begin consideration of begin discussion on the impeachment.
Thank you. But before that, Mr. President Harrison, would you want to take back the chair for the remainder of the session?
I would be honored, the Honorable Commissioner Ryan.
All right, cool. Then we shall have a temporary recess. And yes, we will have a recess to allow the changing of the chairs.
It's more fun in the Philippines. Bakit なんだよ。もう終わりか？立てよ。
何人かなんて覚えちゃいない。5つか6つくらいの頃から戦場にいた。俺は戦士だった。
昔、俺の住んでた村に2度兵隊が来た。あいつらは人の皮をかぶった獣だ。
今度こそ男たちの嵐から子供を守らなければなりません。
差別を好む者はどこにでもいるが、そうでないもん。
Oh my god.
Okay, Mr.
I
President.
apologize. Please.
The
please
Honorable
proceed.
Fruit is all recognized. The floor is yours.
Mr. President, I would just like to give you a warm welcome from your baby time with your girlfriend. I am very much thankful.
I
that you-
Hey,
was
here.
actually
that-
cramming
that-
2 papers tonight, and I just finished.
Two lang?
Ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, 2 papers is a euphemism for woman.
No.
Because
It's
woman
too
has
long.
I
Mr.
concur.
Mr.
I
President, I have
agree
the
with that
floor.
definition.
Mr. President,
too
I have
long
the floor.
papers
Because
to
woman has 2 syllables, and he said 2 papers. Ergo, 2 papers means woman.
Here. Let it be put on the journal. On Hansard.
Welcome
Okay,
back,
I'm just
Iris.
kidding. Anyways, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we begin that we begin discussion on impeachment.
Are there any objections to the motion?
None.
None.
Hearing none, the motion is approved. We'll now begin discussion regarding impeachment. The Honorable Commissioners who drafted the
Commissioners.
resolution may now sponsor the bill. May now sponsor the resolution.
Well, Mr. President, technically the resolution has not yet been filed, I believe. The person who has just coughed is guilty of a severe omission on his part to perform his duty, but no, he is currently creating it, and the reason why I asked for discussion is because he pointed out something very interesting, which I did realize when I wrote a provision, but that I think it best if we remand. Mr. President, if my fellow commissioners could move to... No, Mr. President, I just have to keep referring to you, and I can't name members of the House. Anyways, Mr. President, it's like Mr. Speaker, you know?
Mr. Speaker.
Okay, resolution number 6, if my good friends could oblige, I will link it to them. I'm
Yes,
feeling
my
unusually
lord.
sleepy today.
So am I.
Probably why we aren't laughing at each other. Okay, one second.
Ha 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 ha.
Har har. Okay, I will send the link to the legislative. Funny. Okay, one second, please. Hope I don't accidentally send it to someone. Okay, I have sent the resolution. If all of my fellow commissioners could please look at it and turn to page. Turn to page.
Before we continue, the Honorable Commissioner Fruit, may I know what happened to the amendment of the executive department?
It has passed, and the paragraph that adds qualifications has been removed.
Okay. Thank you. You may resume.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, I ask everyone to look at section
9.
No. Don't presume, Mr. President. Section 10. Section 10, which I will read in full and which I will explain the problem thereof. Quote. The Congress shall elect from among its members, on the basis of proportional representation of the political parties therein, a commission on appointments and a commission on impeachment, each to consist of 2 or 4 members, with the Speaker of the House as its ex officio chairman. So, when I was having a little discussion with he who has not yet submitted his resolution, he pointed out an interesting issue as to how, if there are, for instance, 6 parties in the House, if that fine day arrives, and there are only 2 to 4 members in the committee, how would we be able to proportionately represent the parties? That would be sort of difficult, wouldn't it? Don't you agree, guys? Guys.
What?
So my
Could you
yes.
repeat it? I'm sorry. I couldn't follow.
Okay. So for example, let's say that there is a commission on impeachment. This commission on impeachment would act as the House of Representatives if there is an impeachment process, right?
Yes.
So what would happen is there would be a committee of just about 3. So let's say the committee is me, you, not you, me, Mr. Ryan Magno, and Mr. XO. Mr. Ryan, let's say, is a stinky, disgusting, yellow-tarred Dilawan.
Thank you.
And let us say that Commissioner XO is a stinky, disgusting Marcos loyalist President Duterte lover. But let us then further say that Commissioner Tarsus is a nationalist. And then let's then further say that Commissioner Parliamentarian is a conservative. And then let us say Commissioner Iris is etc., etc., etc. The 2 members in the committee, or even the 4 members, cannot properly accommodate all the parties that are present. Ergo, proportional representation, quote unquote, would be a bit more difficult. Do my fellow commissioners follow?